I am so pleased to welcome everyone and commend each of us for being here tonight because our future is going to be brighter as a result of hearing from this gentleman tonight, Mr. Curtis Spoler, whose beautiful wife is Debbie. And you know what? These guys have been financially free over 25 years. I thought they were still kids, but they're mature now and grandparents. But Curtis and Debbie have walked their talk. And so it's good for us to hear from someone who's already financially independent, huh? And that's what he's going to share with us tonight. Well, I shouldn't tell you what he's going to share. It's money talk. And he knows all about it. And I'm so thankful because my late husband asked him to be our financial mentor. And because of that, I'm debt free. And I want to be like Curtis when I grow up. So let's welcome Curtis Spoler. Woo, 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 woo.
Well, thank you so much, Joyce. And you know how much you mean to Debbie and I. And obviously, your late husband, Perry, he was definitely one of my heroes and great friend of mine for many, many, many years. No matter what we talked about, business, money, or college football, we always had a great time. Okay, we are going to get started. I put down an hour for this talk. Hopefully I get done sooner. See a lot of friendly faces all over the country. I wish I could hug your necks. It's been a while for some of us, but I will see you in short term here in the future, hopefully. Today's talk is going to be on money, currency, freedom, and government control. And I chose this topic because they all go hand in hand. And so we're going to talk about the three different freedoms, two of the three different freedoms. Because if you want to be free, you've got to be economically free, which means that you got a debit card in your pocket, let's just say. You can go out there and spend money and you can go and do those things. Political freedom means you have a passport in your pocket. That means you can go anywhere you want on the planet and use that debit card, and you've got your economics and you got your political freedom. But a third side note, and I am going to use this for myself, is religious freedom. And I highly recommend you find your place in life there. But I do believe without God that you are enslaved, period, no matter how well you do economically or politically. I'm going to go into this talk. These are my opinions. It is not investment advice at all. It is just sharing with you what I do. And this is based off of many, many, many years. I got my freedom back in 1995, but I didn't really dive into economics until about 2009. I understood probably above average in economics, but I didn't realize how little I knew even then until I put probably, I would say in the last 12 years, at least 15,000 hours of study. Anywhere from an hour a day to sometimes 10 hours a day of just reading on what's going on in the world and how this thing called money works and how currency works and how government control all come together, and how if you don't understand the basics of this, you will fall victim and you will be basically enslaved. So we're going to get into all of that. I am going to read you a quote that some of you might have seen me post on Facebook back on the 6th of April. And this is a quote from Bob Murphy. It says, "It is impossible to get a man to understand something that his livelihood depends on his not understanding it." Now, this is important. I've told this to some of my friends that are police officers even. What if it comes a day where government asks you to persecute God's people and your income relies on you doing it or getting fired? It would be a good idea to make sure that you become financially free so you never have to worry about things like that. Wouldn't you agree? I added to this Facebook post, I says, the more you depend on government, the more it becomes impossible for you to notice its corruption. Be careful for what you ask for. So we're going to get into a little bit of this stuff. We're going to hit on money for sure. We're going to talk a little bit about the 6 areas that I invest into. So I will cover that. I will give you some cases of what inflation is, how it affects you personally. I will talk about the cryptocurrency industry. I will talk about some of the gains of just some of the companies that I know of and where there is some money and how I position myself first with economic sound principles. And then I will venture out into some of the other areas that are a little bit more riskier. So let's get started. We're going to get into the political freedom first. You're hearing a lot about, socialism and communism and fascism and all these different isms out there. But I want to break this down into 5 areas, real simple areas. And these areas are a republic, a democracy, anarchy, oligarchy, and a monarchy. So let's talk about those 5 right there. And pretty much you're going to be able to put anything into those 5 areas. A republic is ruled by law. In other words, the people get together, they set up a government that they control, and they put together a law that they find that they would like to live by. So man establishes law for himself. Man and women establish law for themselves. They develop a republic. They put people into office and they tell those people how they want them to control our rules here. Democracy. A democracy is mob rules. A lot of you guys have heard that democracy is what we have in the US. That is not the case. We have a democratically elected republic. When they first asked Benjamin Franklin, when he came out of the First Continental Congress, what type of government do you have, Dr. Franklin? And he told the woman, he says, we have a republic, ma'am, if we can keep it. Because he knows what happens to the people when they start making the laws, they can slip into a democracy. A democracy is not a republic. It is not ruled by law. It's ruled by mob. How many of you guys, just by a raise of hands, have ever said anything you wish you could take back in your life? How many of you guys ever done anything you'd like to take back? How many have ever gotten mad at yourself? Some of you might have even hit the wall with your hand or your fist and maybe even regretted it because maybe you hit the 2x4 instead. Well, that's what happens in a democracy. When the mob gets mad, you can't stop them. And when they stand up and vote, if 51% of the people vote in my town that Kurt is dead, Kurt is a dead man. I'm done. But in a republic, I have my rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which means that if 95% of the people stand up and want Kurt dead, they would have to change the Constitution to kill me because I didn't do anything wrong. All right. So we understand a republic and a democracy. If we slip into a democracy, we will slip into anarchy. Anarchy means that we are out of control. Anarchy is usually set up by a small group of people called an oligarch. Because when you lose your republic and slip into a democracy, you need to have anarchy. Anarchy establishes fear. It establishes hate. It's the blue team against the red team. It's left against the right. It's the Republicans versus the Democrats. It's I hate you, you hate me. It's about race. It's about fear. It's about you're going to die of a virus in the next 3.5 seconds. Anything that can create fear will help the oligarchy step into power. So we have a republic that you can slip into a democracy, you can slip into an anarchy. And then the solution is either you stand tough and protect your republic, or an oligarch will take over and you will be ruled by a handful of masters. This is not a conspiracy. This is not tinfoil hat stuff. This is history for thousands of years. Traditionally, this is the way it works. And then there's a monarchy, which is ruled by one, which is not really the case because monarchies are really an oligarch propping one person up as a figurehead. So out of these five, out of a republic, a democracy, anarchy, oligarchy, and a monarchy, you really only have two because the other three really don't exist, at least not very long. You will have a republic or you will lose it to the oligarchs. So remember to protect what you have. It cost a lot of people their blood to get it for you. You want to protect what you have. This battle over money, this battle all over the whole world, it's all about control of the people. We're going to get into this more. Now, I want to show you a picture if you can see it. I didn't want to redraw it out, but this is called the, what do they refer to it as? The body of politics. Anyways, it starts off at the top of this as man always finds himself in bondage. And you can ask yourself, why do you end up in bondage? It must be because we love it so much. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep choosing it for ourselves. And we blame other people for enslaving us, but we choose it for ourselves. Here's how this works. To get out of bondage, you first realize that there is right from wrong, that there is a spiritual truth. And with the spiritual truth, you will develop great courage. See, Orrin Woodward talks about in his book, I think it's the Launching a Leadership Revolution. He talks about the 3 levels of motivation. He says first is money and things. How many guys are motivated by money and things? All right, I would like to have a nicer lifestyle and stuff. All right, congratulations. That's the shallowest motivation that there is, and we're all guilty, including me as well. But people will work harder for a cause or for recognition. They say that 90% of the people have low self-esteem, and the other 10% of us just feel bad about ourselves. So we're a mess. And when somebody gives us recognition, man, they say grown men will die for it and babies will cry for it. But the ultimate is a cause. The highest level of motivation is a cause, because truly people have given up their life for a cause. So when you go from bondage into realizing a spiritual truth, from there, you will develop great courage. I went the wrong way, this way. Great courage. And with great courage will give you great liberty. That's how you get free, is you got to have the courage to get your freedom. And then with great courage or great liberty, you have abundance. Only free people create. Government creates nothing. They only take from the producers. Only free people create. Now, this is where we have to be careful. This is called the dream, the struggle, the victory. This part right here is the part that many people have sacrificed and suffered. But you have to go through the struggle to get to the victory. How do a kite fly high? How does a kite fly high? By resistance from the wind. How do your muscles grow bigger and stronger? from resistance from the weight. And how do you become the best version of yourselves? By dealing with obstacles and not avoiding them, not going around them, but dealing with them and going through them. See, this right here is the process of dream, struggle, victory. But if we're not careful, I have a buddy of mine in Texas. He told his kids, if I was on my deathbed and I had a quarter, I'd swallow it before I gave it to you guys. And he said that because his kids knew that eventually what was his would be theirs, but he didn't want to take them to take for granted. My kids know that what mine might be theirs might one day, because I want them to learn how to be the best versions of themselves. My job as a dad is to help them get their soul to God. It's not to help them become filthy rich. And if I hand them a dangerous tool like a lot of money before they understand what to do with it, I've hurt my children. So, and if we're not careful and we don't go through the dream, struggle, victory, and you're handed abundance, then you will become selfish eventually. And the reason why is because you didn't create. And if you don't create something, you have scarcity mentality because you don't know how to get it back when you lose it. Selfishness, you slip into complacency. And then eventually you slip into apathy. Who cares? Why vote? They're all crooks anyways. Defeatist attitude. You guys know people that do that, say that? And then from there you slip into dependency. And whenever you depend on other people to take care of you, you are back into bondage again. This is the cycle of life. This has gone on for thousands of years, different people, different time, same results. We have to remember. They said the greatest generation was the World War II generation because they paid a price, they sacrificed, but they said they quite possibly could have created the worst generation ever, the baby boomers, because they said this statement here: my kids will never have to go through what I went through. And they robbed them of the struggle that would give them the character to live a life of substance. Life wasn't meant to be easy. And so the sooner we're tough on ourselves, the sooner life becomes easier for us. The sooner that we start taking the easy way out and having someone take care of us, the harder our future is going to be for us. Let's get into a book that was written by a buddy of mine by the name of Warren Woodward called The Financial Matrix. I highly recommend it. It's a great read. But his new book, Exposed, is really an awesome book. If you have not read this, this is the latest and greatest on what's going on out there in the world today when you're dealing with money and currency and politics. But I want to start off with the financial matrix. And what happens is, and I'll even read you a quote in here. And this one was signed by Orrin. He gave me my own personal copy when he first had this come out. So I got to be careful. I got a bunch of these and I grabbed the wrong one. I didn't want to mess this one up. It says here, wars in old times were made to get slaves. The modern implement of imposing slavery is debt. Orrin talks about the three levels of the three matrices of control. For thousands of years, they would march into battle, they would conquer new territories, and they would enslave the people or kill the people. Well, eventually, slavery was outlawed, and today, most slavery is stamped out all over the planet. But for some reason, the politicians like to keep trafficking alive, but that's another topic for another day. So what happened when slavery ended? The powers to be said, how do we control the production of the people if we can't own the people and put them to work for us? They said, we'll own the land. We'll gobble up the land. People need the land to live because in those days they had to raise crops or livestock, and they'll run it from us. And they did. And we'll charge you half of your production. And you could work our land for free a couple of days a week. They weren't slaves, they were serfs, but life wasn't very good for them. Eventually what happened is the people would go and work in the village. They would become butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. And they said, we're not going to pay your high taxes. And eventually what happened is they had to drop the cost of renting the land. And they said, well, if we can't control them by owning the people and we can't control them by owning the land, how can we control the production of the people? And we got into the third phase of the financial matrix, and it's controlling the currency. I'm going to read you something else. A lot of you guys remember the movie The Matrix, and this was great. I was reading this before I went on here. And this was a conversation that went back between Morpheus, who was the guy that was out of the Matrix, going into the Matrix to get Neo. He says, do you believe in fate, Neo? He says, no. Morpheus said, why? He's because I don't like the idea that I am not in control of my own life. Morpheus said, I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, and there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? And Neo said, the Matrix? But in this particular case, we're going to say the financial matrix. See, we're being controlled because our currency is being controlled, not our money. And we're going to get into that as we go. Remember that over the years, part of the control is to teach the people how to think differently, get you to feel a major battle going on. It keeps you just off your toes. And so what happens, we have something called the 3Ms. The powers out there that are controlling things understand that if you control the money, then you control the media, then you can control the military. And so what's happening over the years is with large amounts of money, you buy these major networks, you control the media, you eventually control the schools, and what is being taught to you today is done by design. We used to be taught a couple hundred years ago that you were a business owner. 90-some% of the people were business owners. As a matter of fact, in 1620, when the Pilgrims landed, there were no jobs because the Indians weren't hiring. You were a business owner or you starved to death. You found a need and you filled it. But that's not what they talk about in school today. They talk about going out and getting an education and tell me what you want to do for a living. What do you want to be when you grow up? Which means usually not the owner, but what job would you like to have? And so it went from 90% of the people business owners and 10% employees to today 90% employees and only 10% are business owners. And when you're not a business owner, you don't understand the basic rules of business, like don't eat your seed money, that you have spares for the next crop. My grandma used to say when I was little, pay yourself first, 10%. It's like, whatever, grandma, you're on crack. That's what I was probably thinking, because I was going to go buy something. I didn't understand what she understood, did I? We're taught to go out there and to get into debt, not just eat our seed money, but eat our seed money for the next 20 years. Now they're talking about making mortgages, 40-year mortgages. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but when they start printing more currency and devaluing your net worth, you know how they hide it? by raising minimum wage. Guess what happens when they print more currency? Money gets tighter and tighter and it's harder to live. And you know what would happen if they didn't raise wages? They didn't raise minimum wage or other wages? Eventually, you wouldn't be able to live anymore. That's what happens when they print more currency. And if you weren't able to live anymore, eventually, how many of you guys think you would start saying, what's wrong? I was able to live 5 years ago. Who's doing this to me? And you need to stop. But we don't ask those questions because they give us just enough money to shut us up by raising minimum wages, raising this over here, giving you a stimulus. You guys all got a $1,400 stimulus, but what you didn't realize is they charged you $5,700 to take it. That's another topic for another day. So let's keep going back into, so you're taught to go out there and get a job, get into debt, get a pension, get a 40-year loan on your mortgage. Yeah, sure, your mortgage dropped from $1,700 down to $1,100. So now you think you're rich again and you go out there and get into more debt. But what you don't understand is that mortgage is still there. Debt doesn't go away. And it's just a way to enslave you longer, more permanent. You hear about digital currency. China's got their digital currency. They had a pilot program going on in 3 different areas of China. Now they've just launched it all through China right now. It's similar to the super app that we have in the life business. The super app is meant to set you free. WeChat is a super app they use in China for government control and to control you, to know where you're at, where your money goes. There is a social score that you are given. If you smoke on the subway, your dog craps on someone's lawn, you get docked on your social score, and more your score goes down, the least you are able to travel. You won't be able to get on buses. You won't be able to get on airplanes. You will be punished. You will be controlled. When you deal with digital currency, they keep control of you, and with a button, they can control your life and shut down your world. You know what else is amazing about the currency in China? Is there's an expiration date. That if you don't use it by a certain amount of time, you will lose it. Because they do not want you saving money. They don't want you saving currency. They want you to keep spending it to stimulate the economy. Don't worry about a savings account. We're going to work you for a certain amount of time. When you retire, we hope you don't live long because we don't want you to be a burden on the world. Welcome to your future if you don't hang on to your republic. All right, so let's keep going. Let's talk about the financial side of this now, because we talked a little bit about political freedom, and we're going to talk about financial freedom, and then we're going to tie it all together. All right. So basically what happens, if we can go back a couple hundred years ago, people would jump in covered wagons. They'd go homestead across the United States. They'd grab a piece of property. They were out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody was around. Do you know what that means? That means if you wanted to eat chicken or have eggs, you better raise chickens. If you felt like you wanted ducks, you better raise some ducks. You need a goat or some cows, it's all up to you, baby. By the way, if you wanted a doctor, you're the guy, you're the gal. You want a teacher for your kids? By all means, help yourself. Become a scholar, learn all the things you need to learn. You want to build a house? So glad you're handy with the hammer. You are a master of all trades. You have to master them all. Isn't that difficult to live? And then eventually what happens, you get a neighbor that moves next to you, and I mean next to you, because he lives about 10 miles away. And he's raising chickens or goats or whatever. And you can start trading with him. And that is awesome. And then more neighbors start to pop up all over the place. Pretty soon you got this old Western town going. And all of a sudden you want to trade some chickens with somebody that's got ducks, but they don't want chickens. You say, but you got to take these chickens because I want your ducks. Well, sorry, I don't want your chickens. The heck? How's this ever going to work? Eventually, they had to come up with a common currency or common money, something that everybody wanted. Do you know how hard that is to find? Something that everybody wants? It would have to be a store of value too, something that's real. And over the years, they've tried all kinds of things. They've tried stones, they've tried whale bones, they've tried metal calderons, they've tried everything you can imagine for thousands of years, trying to figure out what could be used as money. And for 6,000 years, it kept coming back to gold and silver. No matter how many times people tried to get away from it, nothing else tend to work. If you use chickens, the chickens would die. If you try to use food, the food would rot. You had to find something that could stand all the harsh environments and still keep its value. And then if you found a currency and a money, something that everybody could use, then you can have a division of labor. What does that mean? That means, hey, Sabra, you're a great school teacher. You can be the school teacher. Heck, we're going to make cams on here. You're our doctor, so you better study up, bud. Somebody else is going to be the builder and build houses. You'll have a team of people. Somebody else is going to plant crops. Somebody else is going to be raising livestock. And all of a sudden, we don't have to be masters of everything. We can get good at a few things, and we can exchange our products and services for this thing called money, gold or silver, something that everybody wanted. And that would make the economy work because everybody could just trade anytime they wanted. There would be a value on the things that you had. So let's talk about the difference between money and currency real quick. You'd go back in time, you'd walk around with your gold and silver. You're afraid someone was going to knock you in the head and rob you. Plus, it was heavy. Plus, if you had a hole in your pocket, that wouldn't have been good. Well, what you would do is you'd take your gold to the goldsmith and you drop it off, and he'd give you some receipts. And you take the receipts and you go hide them, put them in your wallet or put them in your house, whatever. And what happened is if you wanted to buy, let's say, a big metal cauldron, a big metal pot, you'd go home, you get some of these receipts, you go to the goldsmith, give it to the goldsmith. He'd give you some of your gold or some of your silver. You take it to the guy that had the metal cauldron, you give it to him. He'd give you the metal pot. He'd take the gold to the goldsmith. The goldsmith would give him receipts. Whew. Long process. Well, it didn't take long before you and I just started giving each other the receipts. Why go through all the hassle of going and getting the gold and doing all this from the goldsmith when I'll just give you a few receipts? Yeah, that sounds good. Which leads me to those things in your pocket and purses that we call dollars. That's not money. That is currency. It's a receipt for money being stored for you somewhere else, or at least it's supposed to be. So let's continue with the analogy of the goldsmith. Eventually, the goldsmith realized nobody was coming for their gold, that they were exchanging the receipts amongst themselves. The goldsmith realized there's more and more people coming into town, 1,000 people, and he sold 1,000 more receipts. Well, there was only 1,000 pieces of gold and 1,000 receipts out there, and he sold another 1,000 receipts. The value of your net worth was cut in half, and you had no clue you were robbed of half of your money. Ouch. Since no one was coming for the gold, he could print more receipts if he wanted to. He could cut your value down to a quarter, down to 10%. He can print as many receipts as he wants. because no one was coming for the gold. Eventually what happens is he says, I got enough of this gold. I got enough of this money. I might just leave town with it all before someone catches on to what foolish things they're doing out there in the world. So he declares fiat, which is Latin for let it be, or because I said so, that all of those receipts now are money, which we know they're not money, it's currency. But because he said so, now those receipts are worth nothing. But as long as we have faith that there's something, we can keep exchanging them until we lose faith. If we lose faith in those receipts, then they become as valuable as what? Kindling to light your fireplace. All right. So there's the example of what's happened with our money and why there's so much currency, the printing of more and more currency. Government prints up another $1.9 trillion and they give, 500 billion or something like that to the people. Well, what happened to the rest of it? What happened to the other 1.4 billion? There's something called modern monetary theory, the MMT. This is what they're big on these days, which is foolish, which means who cares about debt? Just keep printing more currency and we'll print our way out of it. Well, in the past, people have tried this and it has worked at different times. If you went back to the Second World War, they printed more currency. Interest rates went up. And as interest rates went up, they were able to lend themselves money for free. And with interest rates going up, they could sell that money at a higher price and use the extra money to pay off the debt. You have to be very disciplined to do that. And you better not do it too crazy. Today, we're beyond crazy, just so you know. We passed that and then some. But how in the world is that supposed to happen when you're giving your money away to set up these oligarchs all over the world and sending the U.S. taxpayer the bill? Isn't that amazing? You can go to Australia right now, and there's a real estate boom that's just going crazy. You want to know why? Because the Australian government is promising anybody from out of the country. A lot of China's going into Australia and buying houses. They're giving them $50,000 if they purchase a house. Now, you imagine this if you're an Australian citizen and your next door neighbor comes in and buys a house, competes, the prices go up, what makes it harder for your kids to buy a house, and they send you the bill. You actually paid for this guy to come in and drive up the prices so your kids don't buy it. You can't make this stuff up. It's absolutely berserk. All right, let's keep going. How does inflation affect us? I gave you a couple examples, but here's a basic idea of how it works. I walk into a store, I got $5 to my name. I see something in the store I've been wanting my whole life. I finally see it. I'm going to get it. It's $5. I got $5 to my name. And then I start thinking about this. Man, it's my last $5. No, I'm not going to do it. Well, now these products aren't selling. And so now what happens is the store owner starts to drop his prices. But what happens if I can digitally make more currency go into Kurt's wallets? Because you don't even have to print it nowadays. It's all digital. Digital, put it on my phone. This is the wallets of the future right here. So all of a sudden, now I don't have $5. I got $100. I walk in there with a whole new attitude, don't I? Heck yeah, give me that thing. I wanted it my whole life. As a matter of fact, give me 3 of them. I'm going to take a green one, a blue one, and a red one. And the store owner said, oh my goodness, these things are flying off the shelf. I will raise my prices. A lot of us were taught that inflation is when prices go up. And that is a lie from the pits of hell. Do not believe it. Inflation is when they print more currency, and the result of that is prices go up. But if you're the one printing the currency, you cleverly leave the first part of the equation out, the part about how you're destroying everybody's life. And when you're also teaching the schools what to teach, you also let them know that inflation is when prices go up. See, inflation of printing currency will result in an inflationary economy, which means that ultimately prices will go up. But it takes two things to make it go up. It's not just printing of more currency, but something called the velocity of currency. You'll hear it referred to as the velocity of money. That is not true. It is the velocity of currency. So I'll explain what that is. I go to a restaurant, I tip the waitress. She catches an Uber on the way home, she tips the Uber driver extra money. The Uber driver goes to the gas station and fills up their tank. So between the waitress, the Uber driver, and the gas station attendant, the velocity of money is 3. What happens when you have a deflationary economy, or when people are not spending currency, like in the case of a virus where everybody stays home? So Kurt stays home now, and Kurt doesn't tip the waitress. That shut down all that velocity of currency. So when currency is moving and you print more of it, prices will go up. Now, government's been trying to make prices go up for a long time now, and they haven't been able to do it. We're still probably another year and a half away. In some things, it is going up. But in things where it matters, like gold and silver, they're going to keep that as low as they can, as long as they can. All right. So now we understand how inflation affects us also. Let me tell you a little bit about the 6 areas where I invest in. The very first thing that you're going to invest in, and this is the most important thing, is you. You have to invest in your education. Some people think that I'm against education. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I believe in the correct education. And I believe nowadays what we're learning in schools is far from the truth. And so be careful of where you plug your kids into. They are going to learn it, and their kids' kids and their grandkids are going to learn it. Very scary, very scary. All right. Very first thing, you invest into you. The second thing that I invest into is my business. I've always taken care of my business. My business takes care of me. It develops passive income. With passive income, I get my freedom, and I have currency that comes in that I then invest into money, which leads me to the third investment, which is gold and silver. Silver is really undervalued, so I invest heavily into more silver than I do gold, about 90% to 10% gold. That's just my personal preference today. After that, I will invest into mining stocks. Side note about the stock market: the stock market is supposed to be a representation of businesses in the US. So it should pretty much parallel the gross domestic product of what's happening. But the gross domestic product did this many, many years ago. And the stock market has been going to the moon ever since. Well, why? Well, starting back in '08, when we started bailing out the housing market, we also went into bailing out businesses, which is a no-no. General Motors was one of the first ones to take a handout from government. And now government is printing more currency, sending you the bill, and putting that currency into these companies, and these billionaires are becoming wealthier. So you heard about the wealthier becoming more wealthier? And people say, well, that's bad that they do that. Why do they do that? Because we have a society that forced everybody into believing, get an education, get a pension, and retire. And so guess what happens? When all these people are trying to retire on a pension, they need their stocks to go up. And if they don't go up, you ruin all these people's lives. We are in a catch-22 right now that you're damned if you don't and you're damned if you do. And that's where we're at. Now, there is some that are doing it for other reasons, but that's another talk for another day. So now what's happening is they're pumping money into major ones. You have about 7 of the top ones out there today. You have Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, you have Microsoft, Tesla, and you have Netflix. Those are the big ones. Those are a majority, or that is about 40% of the volume, the market cap. And all government has to do is get in there and pump a little money into areas to keep it going. Okay, so now we talked about mining stocks is a little different. Mining stocks have been kept down. Mining stocks are as soon as I feel like I've built a solid foundation in myself, in my business, and in my metals, then I venture out into things that are a little more riskier. I will put it into some mining stocks because I can leverage more money on it. So let's say that if silver goes up 20%, my mining stocks might double. If silver doubles, my mining stocks might go 4 to 6 times. So I can make more money in my mining stocks than I can even on my physical. But what if government comes in and shuts down the stock market and I can't take possession of my wealth? Back to the reason why you invested into this, you invested into people, and you invested into metals, because they can't take that away from you. So you got to get the foundation right first. After mining stocks, I venture out even into some crypto. We will get into some of those cryptos in just a minute. And then I have crypto-backed gold and silver. That is one of my favorites. And I believe that is going to be a big part of the world currency. Now, a lot of you guys, so you understand why we have physical silver and physical gold. If you don't take possession of it in your hands, you do not own it. I recommend you everybody have a little cash at their house, a little bit of metal at their house, and then you could put the rest into vaults that are guaranteed out of the government's hands. There's places in different parts of the world that you can store your wealth. I have my metal stored in a couple different vaults in different places. And so you could do that. You can store it close by your house if you live in places like Idaho and different places. There's vaults real close to you that you can go down and visit your money if you'd like to visit it. Make sure it's still there and no one's taking it from you. Let's get into the cryptocurrency now for a moment, because this is a big area and a lot of you guys have heard about it. And I'm going to try to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so. Basically, we have the internet, and the internet was established, and a lot of things were done in such a way that they believe should have been done differently. They have encrypted companies and that you'll be able to do business on in the future. And basically what it is, they call it distributed ledger technology. It is not crypto technology. It's not blockchain technology. It's distributed ledger technology. If you went to the bank as a kid, they probably gave you a bank book. And when you gave them money, they stamped your bank book, they stamped their ledger, and they took your money and you had a deposit. That's a ledger. It's a way of keeping track of things. I want you to imagine for a moment that I have a 3-ring binder. In that binder, it's the ledger. And every page is a block that is put in the chain. Each one of those rings on the binder are chains. Well, in the distributed ledger technology, there's thousands and thousands of chains. And every one of them are putting blocks. They're putting pages of information into that ledger. And every previous page is absorbed into that page. And every future page put on it will be absorbed into that page as well. These block producers in different parts of the world, They have what they call nodes. From these nodes, it goes out to the people and it goes out into the computers. You cannot go in there and change the blockchain unless you control more than half of the nodes. So that can't happen. Ray Dalio, a billionaire, just here a couple weeks ago stated that he believed that Bitcoin will be outlawed in a few countries, including the United States. He believed it to be a definite possibility. One of the members on the board of the Security Exchange Commission with the U.S. is known lovingly as Crypto Mom. She came out just the other day and said that ship has already sailed. The only way that you could stop Bitcoin now is if you shut down the whole internet. The U.S. government tried to shut Bitcoin down back in 2013, and they were unsuccessful then. But now it's taken a life of its own. A lot of people, Orrin Woodward included, believe that it is a store of value and it is going to be the currency of the future. And although I agree with Orrin 99.99% of the time on most things, him and I laugh about this because we don't necessarily see eye to eye on this. Bitcoin is a slow technology. It's not scalable and it's old. And it's very costly to produce. Do I believe Bitcoin will be around for a while? Without a doubt. Do I believe that Bitcoin will go to $1 million someday? I believe it. Now, if that's all you care about and you want to invest in Bitcoin, knock yourself out. I've invested in crypto the last 3 years. I purchased my first cryptocurrency and I didn't even have a wallet to put in that I could see. I got a UR number in the United Kingdom and sent thousands of dollars and didn't know where it went. And it wasn't until months later when I was actually able to get a wallet, I saw where my money was. So in the early days, it was a little tougher for people like me, especially since I'm not a computer techie person, to just send money to weird places and not know if it was ever there or if I got anything for it. Now, today it's a lot easier. There's a lot of wallets. It's easier to do. And there is a lot of crypto. In 3 years, I've still not bought Bitcoin. Some of you guys think that I might be crazy. But I believe that even though Bitcoin will go, let's say it does go to, let's say it goes 19 times more. I have companies that I believe are so good that they'll go 10,000 times my money. And a lot of these have done far greater than Bitcoin has, believe it or not. Now, if you bought Bitcoin in the early days for pennies and it's at 64,000, that's a different story. But most people today are buying it at $50,000, $60,000, and that ship has sailed. Yes, I got a 5-minute warning from my lovely bride. Okay, so let's get into some of this. Let's talk about it. What does Kurt invest in? 6 areas. Myself is the first one. The second is my business. The third one is physical metals. The fourth one is mining stocks. The fifth one is crypto backed by money. And the sixth one is cryptocurrency. Once you get your foundation established, you can go into riskier things that will make you more money after that. I will give you an example of a few of these. And just so you know, the world is trying to control this stuff. So we'll get to that in just a moment. It used to be that venture capitalists would go in and invest millions of dollars. Years later, the company would be developed. They would take the company public. The venture capitalists would make gazillions of dollars, and you and I fight over the crumbs in the stock market. What crypto does allows us to invest our money into tokens and buy into these companies at the ground floor. Therefore, we get to have a chance to make the big money now. I think that's a pretty cool deal personally. All right. It used to be that in the dot-com bubbles back in 99, it was creating billionaires. They talked about billionaires that were in their pajamas living in their mom's basement. It created so many billionaires like the Bill Gates and the I'm looking for names, Michael Dells and the Jeff Bezos, and all these guys that became billionaires in their 20s. Well, the crypto area is going to be producing trillionaires, and billionaires are not going to be talked about. And people like me that plan on being worth 200-300 million, they won't even give me the time of day. But I want you to understand we're going to be living in a different world. Things will be inflated. There's going to be people that will be fighting to figure out how to turn on their electricity. There will be people that will literally be hungry. We will be in a moral dilemma. It's a different world than it was when metals exploded, let's say, in the 80s. So we're going to be in a different world. This is going to be the largest transfer of wealth you've ever seen in your life. Keep in mind, during the Great Depression, not everybody went broke. Some people made a lot of money. And the only difference is they thought differently. I think it was Walt Disney that said, they asked him about his success. He says he just looks at what everybody does and he does the opposite. If you just did that as a rule of thought, you would go farther in your life. Now that I said that, I'm going to tell you about a little bit of these cryptos real quick. I have some of these I bought early on. Some of them I bought and sold. I had one called XOR. I bought it. I sold it at $10 because I got tired of it going from $10 to $5, back to $10, back to $5. I bought it at $9. As soon as I sold it at 10, over the next 4 months, it shot up to $700. I had $1,200 in there. Since then, it's gone to $960. That $1,200 had been worth $128,000. I didn't know somebody who knew somebody that could have bought it once. It was in my wallet. I had to work to get rid of it. That's one of them. So that one's gone up, I don't know, 160x already. Chainlink, I remember, was 2.25. Now it's at about $37. It's like 15, 16x. I don't know what it is. Ocean Protocol, I've seen that go 4, 6, whatever it is today. Polkadot, I've seen it go 8, 9, 10 times, whatever it is. Bitcoin, I've seen that go about 19-fold just in the last year, from 3,500 to 64,000. Ethereum, I've seen in the last year go from 132 to $2,400. That I can't tell you. I think it's 20 times its money or something. Telos, I've seen go from a penny up to, it's about 12, 13 cents. I believe that'll be a $300 token one day. Cardano has gone from 10 cents to $1.10 in 3 months. These are figures that I got a month ago. They've all gone up since then. I don't know the latest figures, but Binance coin went from 27 to 335 in 12 months. Litecoin went from 44 to 228 in 4 months. That's 5 times. Uniswap went 9 times in 2 months. Stellar went 6 times in 4 months. Crypto.com went 4 times in 3 weeks. Monero went 9 times in 11 months. Theta went 53 times in 10 months. Dash went 3 times in a month. Maker went 5 times in 2 months. These are just some I just wrote down. I wrote these down in 5 minutes. I could have pulled 100 other ones out there. Is there a lot of cryptocurrency that are going to be bad companies? Without a doubt. But I've studied the really good ones. And there's 2 camps. I'm just going to tell you my opinion on this. When you were in high school, they had the cheerleaders and the jocks. They were on one team. They were the cool kids. And then you had the nerds. They were the other team. Well, I don't want to say anything bad about the future of the jocks. But I'll tell you, the nerds end up becoming billionaires and they're married to Miss America. And so I decided a long time ago I was going to find out who was the biggest and the best. And I put a lot of money into some companies that are still on the outside, still being treated like they're not cool. I made sure that I invested in the big companies. When it's all said and done, I'll tell you a guy's name, Dan Larimer. I believe Dan Larimer is the greatest mind in the space. He said a couple weeks ago on Twitter, when all fiat currency collapses, EOS will be the world currency. Dan has a lot of great stuff. When he talks, he's one of the guys out there I listen to when he talks. So let's wrap this up because I know I'm over my time now by 2 minutes. The bottom line is this. We are going into some really crazy times. The World Economic Forum, the oligarchs of the world, the union reps of the world, the IMF, they want to control us all. They have their currency called special drawing rights. Special drawing rights came to be, I believe, in 1960. The IMF had been around since the Second World War. But anyways, I've got the date on a paper around here somewhere. The International Monetary Fund believes they want to control the world. They want to be in charge of the world. They want all the countries of the world to give them money. They turn their currency into these SDRs. They want us to put together 1 trillion SDRs, which, by the way, they want to charge the US 650 billion of that. And out of that, they say it's going to go to poor nations, which now that we're finding out only 10% of that's going to go to the poor nations. 70%, 75% is going to go to the G20 or the G7, which means it's going to go to places like China and Russia, and it's going to go to different places like that, people that don't need it. And they're going to send you and me the bill. Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, is now calling for a world tax. So you got to remember, going back to my original notes in here, I don't want to have the federal government, I don't want the world controlling my country. And I don't want my country controlling my state. And I don't want my state controlling my county. And I don't want my county telling me what to do in my city. And I don't want my city telling me what to do in my neighborhood. And I don't want my neighborhood to tell me how to raise my children. You got to remember that part of the teaching that's being taught in the schools and in the media today is anti-nationalist, that it's more of a globalist society. And that for somehow, if you just are proud of the United States, that you're a racist somehow. They will attack the flag. They will attack the pledge. They will even attack the eagle on top of the flagpole. They will attack prayer. They will attack the family. Just turn on Bart Simpson and find out how many times dad gets put down. If we can continue to de-edify anybody that will teach their kids truth. We don't want the churches teaching. We don't want the individuals or the family or the neighbor, the city or the county or the state, or we would like the world to do what they do. And you can go to the World Economic Forum, their website, and there's a video you can watch, and it'll tell you their plan. It's to have a world oligarch. And they said, you will own nothing, you will rent everything, and you will be happy. The question is begged, if that we rent everything, who owns it? Because we must be renting it from somebody. This game is not about blue versus red, left versus right, elephants versus donkeys, or racism, or even about a pandemic. It's about control. The third phase of the financial matrix, controlling the currency. Anyways, I sure am proud of all of you for being on the call. I hope this was helpful, at least in a small way. There's so much to talk about, and I believe that I kind of skimmed on a lot of it in a story form so that it would make sense. We will have more of these in the future. I just want to tell you there's a lot of great people, great leaders on here. I'm looking at the Barnetts right now. Obviously, we've got the Seymours and Joyce Brooks, great leaders. I know that Robert Renee down in Texas. I saw Max and Terry on here a minute ago. I'm getting the name calling, and I know there's 3 pages here. I know we've got, I'm looking at tons of names on here, dang. anyways, some great people. I know my son-in-law Miguel's on here somewhere too as well. I'll just tell you this, that these guys and gals, a lot of them I've known for many years, and a lot of you have become like extended family to me. I have done very well in my lifetime. I probably easily could say in 55 years, I've lived about 10 lifetimes. I have been to 48 of the 50 states. I have stayed on private islands. I've gone golfing by helicopter. I've chased tuna 60 miles off the tip of Baja between two hurricanes. I have had an amazing life, and I'm just getting started. But I want you guys to get your freedom, and I want you to learn how to help your families, your kids and your grandkids get their freedom. So talk with the person that shared this with you. We got a lot of great resources. I mentioned Orrin Woodward's books right here. Not to mention, I mentioned his super app, The Life Business. It is something that had launched me on this journey many years ago and has been a big part of my success. But I give it all to God, because that is the main driver of all this and the reason why I do it. So God bless you guys. Have a fantastic evening, and I will see you soon.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
You are so welcome, guys. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thanks,
That
Curtis.
was wonderful.
Seeing you.
Very
All
good.
right, bye, Freddie. Love you guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Curtis.
you.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Miss Joyce.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
Curtis.
Thank you.